Hi, and welcome back to Boxing Fans channel. George Foreman has been a spectacle in boxing world, beating people like Ken Norton and Joe Frazier. George Foreman has been showing incredible power, knocking people out left and right, having a deadly uppercut mixed with his incredibly powerful right and left hook. So today we're going to go and look at 5 times George Foreman showed incredible power. First is Jack O'Halloran versus George Foreman, which, by the way, I actually don't know how to pronounce O'Halloran correctly, so I'm going to refer to him as just Jack. Jack and George Foreman were set to fight 1970, January 26. Jack was 6 feet and 6 inches tall and weighed around 214 pounds for the fight, opposed to George Foreman, who was 6 foot and 4 inches tall and weighed around the same as Jack. George Foreman would lead in the fight as he usually did, making a rough dog fight between the two. He would lead in with a jab before throwing multiple brutal hooks and uppercuts. In the fight, George Foreman would land 2 right hooks, sending Jack to the canvas, and he was unable to get back up, giving the win to George Foreman by knockout. Boone Kirkman versus George Foreman was set for 10 rounds, but didn't make it past 2. Boone Kirkman was 6 foot and 1 inches tall. He was a real contender at the time, having 22 wins and 1 loss. The fight was set for 1970, November 18th. The two would face off in Madison Square Garden in New York. Both fighters came out swinging. Boone would try to avoid Foreman's jabs and was unsuccessful as George would continuously nail Boone with the jab. In the first round, George Foreman would throw a vicious right uppercut followed by a left hook and another right uppercut, sending Boone to the canvas.
For a right hand, it bothers him a little bit. The left hand staggers him, and the right hand. 1, 2.
Boone would survive the countdown only to get up and be put back on the canvas again.
Trying to get one shot off, he can't do it. Another good right hand by Foreman. And he puts.
In round 2, George Foreman would land a deadly right uppercut, sending Boone back to the canvas a 3rd time in this fight.
Knockdown. He was down.
Boone would again get back up, but was on wobbly legs. He would try to go on offense. George Foreman would counter and land multiple blows, sent Boone Kirkman to the canvas a 4th time, and the fight was ended.
Kirkman could do almost anything. He can't do anything at all, and it's Foreman just pounding him into the canvas. And the referee, Arthur McCanty, stops the fight in the 2nd round.
Joe Frazier versus George Foreman 1. George Foreman would be facing Smoking Joe Frazier, who was 29-0 and was the heavyweight champion. Joe Frazier was the nearly 6 foot tall and weighed 217 pounds heading into the Foreman fight. This fight was set for 15 rounds, but wouldn't make it past 2. The fight would happen in 1973, January 22nd. George Foreman and Joe Frazier would exchange multiple blows. Joe Frazier would try his best to get an inside and apply as much pressure as he could, but unfortunately, with George Foreman being the taller boxer and having an exceptional reach advantage, he was able to counter with devastating hooks and uppercuts, resulting in Joe Frazier getting hit with a right uppercut, sending Joe to the canvas in the 1st round.
Next to me is saying it. You may hear him. Down goes Frazier.
Joe Frazier would survive the countdown. With 20 seconds left in the 1st round, George Foreman would land a deadly right uppercut that landed perfectly on Joe Frazier, sending him to the canvas a 2nd time.
Out his job. Foreman is all over Joe Frazier. Frazier is down.
He'd get back up and the fight was resumed, but Foreman would come over and land multiple uppercuts and hooks, sending Joe Frazier to the canvas again for a 3rd time.
2 knockdowns in the 1st round of Joe Frazier. Down again.
The round would end though, and Joe Frazier would be able to continue the fight. In the 2nd round, George Foreman would land 2 right hooks, again sending Joe Frazier to the canvas for the 4th time.
Frazier's knees buckled. He is about. He is down.
Joe Frazier would be able to get back up and the fight was resumed. Immediately, George Foreman would land a left uppercut and Joe Frazier was visibly stunned. He tried to throw a punch before falling to the canvas again for a 5th time.
A quick left from Joe. Another. Frazier is down for the.
Again, Frazier would get back up, but would be sent back to the canvas not long after, as George Foreman would land 2 left hooks followed by a right uppercut, sending Frazier to the canvas again for a 6th time. The fight was ended and George Foreman was the winner.
It's ready to go again. Joe is standing. There he goes. Pacheco, Ali's doctor next.
Ken Norton versus George Foreman would take place the following year. This was set for 15 rounds, but much like the Frazier fight, it wouldn't make it past the 2nd round. George Foreman would bully Ken Norton in the 1st round, breaking through Norton's crab-like defense and landed multiple jabs. Not only that, he pushed Norton around, making it a dogfight. In the 2nd round, George Foreman would land multiple right hooks and uppercuts, almost sending Norton through the ropes. But
out of the face of Norton. Norton is a bit stunned as Foreman is teeing off, and it looks like Norton.
the ref would intervene and Norton would get a standing 8 count. Norton would be able to continue fighting, but then George Foreman would run in and land multiple shots once again, nearly sending Norton through the ropes. But somehow Norton bounced back up from the ropes, but no matter what, he still got the standing 8 count. But again, Foreman would run out after the standing 8 count and land multiple left and right hooks, officially sending Norton to the canvas.
Look at the side of that, a right uppercut, a left jab, and a vicious left, sends Norton.
Norton was unable to get back up and the fight was over. George Foreman versus Joe Frazier 2. Again, George Foreman would fight Joe Frazier June 15th in 1976. This fight was also set for 12 rounds, but would only go until the 5th round. Once again, George Foreman would bully Joe Frazier in the ring, keeping him at distance and constantly throwing the jab, and land the uppercut. In the 5th round, George Foreman would pin Joe Frazier to the ropes, throw multiple hooks. Eventually, a left hook would connect perfectly on Joe Frazier's chin, sending him to the canvas for the first time. Joe Frazier would get back up and survive the countdown, but like the first fight, George Foreman would pounce on Joe Frazier, landing multiple hooks, again sending Joe Frazier to the canvas. Unfortunately, Joe Frazier was not seen by the ref as fit to continue the fight, giving George Foreman the win by TKO. George Foreman has always been a powerful boxer, destroying multiple opponents by knockout and making boxing legends like Joe Frazier look like a walk in the park for him. There is simply just one thing to say about George Foreman. He was, and still is, a boxing legend. This is 5 times George Foreman showed next level power.